Okay, cool. So we'll just get started, and if anyone else trickles in, we can join us halfway through. But welcome. Today's workshop is about college affordability, and we'll talk a lot about how to keep tuition low, and different strategies to do that for college. A little workshop overview. We'll start off with kind of setting the foundations about talking about finances for paying for college, different wordings that we'll throw around. We'll talk about building an affordable college list, applying for scholarships, and applying for FAFSA. And then we'll end off with talking about how to approach this conversation of finances with your family, and finally, how to review financial aid offers when you get to that point. That's like later on down the line, but that's after you get accepted into college. We'll end off with that. A little bit about me. I'm Angela. Don't know what's going on with my throat. I just had a slice of cake. It might be because of that. I am a rising junior studying biochemistry with a minor in women's, genders, and sexuality studies at Barnard College, Columbia University. Ooh. I grew up first gen low income on Staten Island, New York. And what else do I have here? I am a Dell Scholar as well as a National Science Foundation scholarship recipient. And a little fun fact about me that kind of has to do with this workshop, or it does, is that I have an older sister who calls me every year around October to remind me to fill out my FAFSA. Which, spoiler, you have to fill out your FAFSA every single year. So that's why. And maybe it's because she's an older sister. She really likes to remind me of these things, but usually I remember myself. Here is the link to my office hours that you can drop by if you have any questions, concerns, or just want to talk about anything in general about your college applications. And as always, we have a raffle of the day. We're giving out a $10 raffle gift card that you can win by doing one of these things listed here. You'll get a ticket into our raffle. So you can chat a response into the chat. You can unmute and respond to a question, and or keep your camera on. And just by being here, you'll also get 1 point towards our annual grand prize raffle. Since this is the last workshop, after this one, 3 winners will be drawn. And the biggest prize will be $100, which is amazing. Okay, jumping right into this workshop, the first section is about the basics of paying for college and how most students commonly end up paying for college. So these are the 4 common ways. Two of them are grants and scholarships, and both of these are money that you do not have to give back. They're what we call free money. Scholarships are usually merit-based, so usually there's an application process that you'll have to go through where you submit your resume, what you've done, your extracurriculars, maybe your grades. You might have to write an essay, such and such. Grants, on the other hand, are more commonly need-based and financial-based. So you'll have to submit things like typically your parents' tax return forms, such and such for that. But both scholarships and grants are free money that you don't have to give back. And that's in contrary to loans, which is money that you do have to give back, and with interest. And interest is the additional percentage of the money that you borrowed that is added to however much total you have to return in the end. So there are 2 different types of loans: government loans and private loans. And the main difference between those is that government loans typically have less of a percent interest on your loans than private loans. What that means is that when you typically borrow from the government and take out a government loan, you'll have to return less when in comparison to a private loan. Let me know if that is confusing. Feel free to type it in the chat and I'll reword it. And lastly, what we have listed here is work study, which is basically just a normal, regular, schmegular part-time job. I, as a student who has access to work study funds, find that having that fund has helped me find jobs, especially on campus. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily guaranteed money. You still have to work for it and you get a paycheck for your work. After all that has been said and done, our first poll for today or activity for today is this question: which of the following best describes your goals related to paying for college? So these options are going to be listed as part of the poll. You can select all that apply to you. Okay, cool. We're getting a lot of the first three options of getting as many scholarships as possible, full ride scholarships, and minimal or no student loans. Those are all great goals to have. I find that most students want to find a full ride scholarship. I think the most popular full ride scholarship out there, or one of the most popular ones, is Questbridge. So if you wanted to look into that, just kind of throwing that out there for you guys to look into. We have a question: when transferring from a community college to a uni, can I have scholarships for both? Thanks, Sarah. I have scholarships for both. I don't know the exact answer to that. I'm leaning more towards it depends on the CC/uni. So it's kind of like scenario specific. Sarah, do you have anything to add on for that?
Um, are you referring to the Quest Bridge or a full ride or what specifically do you mean? Oh, any kind of scholarships. Okay, yeah. I mean, scholarships can apply anywhere. You can apply it to community college. If you're transferring afterwards, you can apply it to four-year institution. So yeah, definitely can go anywhere. If there's like if it's a full ride, it would definitely depend on what it says. And then every scholarship has its own kind of like policy and
Hmm.
rule. So, but most of the time, yes, they're transferable and can go anywhere.
Yes. And I will also say, if the scholarship is school specific, that will probably not be able to transfer if you were to switch schools. But yes, thanks, Sarah. Cool. Thank you all so much for answering the poll for that, and really good question. This next slide is about kind of like the statistics of first gen students with loans. So statistically, first gen students are not only more likely to take out a loan, but they are also more likely to owe more money when in comparison to students with parents who are college educated. And this isn't to intimidate or scare you, but it's more so to emphasize like the importance of being self-educated, or like educated about finances, especially as a first-gen student. And just by being here at a workshop like this, you are taking a really good step towards that direction. So helps to you, and continue kind of like keeping up to date with things will help you as well. Kind of beat the odds of these statistics. 3 ways to keep college affordable, and we're going to go into each of these in the later slides. The first one is to create an affordable college list. The second is to apply for a lot of scholarships, and the third, to choose the best financial aid offer/package. This is in no particular order. They're just three things that will help you along the way to be able to afford college. The first one, as I had mentioned, is building an affordable college list. And if you have come to any of our other workshops, you might have seen this slide before. We always include it in our workshops that have to do with financial aid. It's very information dense and has a lot of useful links, so feel free to come back and go through each one of these links. The first way to make your college list affordable is to look at schools with a low sticker price. And the way I like to think about sticker price is basically the full cost of a college or university. Keep in mind, typically students don't end up paying the sticker price, but looking at schools with already a lower sticker price or full price will help you create an affordable college list. So, what are some examples of lower sticker price schools? They are community colleges, public and state universities, low tuition schools, and tuition-free schools, which are rare, but they are out there, and you can use this link to try to find some of them. As someone had mentioned, I have spoken to students who want to go down the route of like transferring from a community college, let's say, to a four-year college. And that not only is useful for students who might not be happy with like the GPA or stats that they're applying into college with, but also it can be a more affordable option for certain students. So those are the different low sticker price schools. There are also schools with good financial aid, and this is both public and private schools. I have spoken to many students who don't really know about this, but a lot of private schools out there will kind of promote the fact that they meet 100% of demonstrated need, even if they are private schools. So what that means is even though they have a high sticker price, they might be able to give, let's say, like their low income students more grants, more scholarships, so that they can still afford going to this private school. So looking at those schools will be helpful as well. There are also colleges that meet 100% of demonstrated need for undocumented students, and that is a really good place to start exploring affordable options as an undocumented student, if that is applicable to you. There are also schools with a lot of great merit-based scholarships, and those are usually schools with big endowments. And those are also the schools where you can find some full ride scholarships. I know Boston University, I have a few friends who receive some really great full ride scholarships from, and I'm pretty sure that's because they have a really good endowment. So that's just an example, and if you wanted to look into that as well, could be a really good school. Cool. I have a little reflection question here. So, of the different types of affordable schools that we had just mentioned, is there a specific one that piqued your interest and you might want to add on to your college list right now? I'm going to go back to the other slide so you can be refreshed of what we spoke about. So, is there a type of school listed on here that you were like, oh, I didn't really think about that you now want to think about? I know when I was in high school, I didn't really know that tuition-free schools existed. I knew there were like military scholarships that existed, but I think if I were, let's say, like a rising senior, I'd be like, what are tuition-free schools? What does 100% demonstrated need mean? Well, schools that meet 100% of demonstrated need, that's kind of another way of saying that they'll be able to give a good amount of grants to a student who demonstrates financial need, if that makes sense. So I want to say that it's just like a different phrasing for it. Yes, it's not necessarily that the student is 100% demonstrated need, it's that the school would be able to meet that need. So, i.e., they'll be able to give a reasonable, good amount of money to a student who needs the money to attend their school. Ooh, interesting. And this school was the school in California? Do you know? I wonder if that, oh, interesting. That's so cool. Yeah, I really didn't know that, like, well, now I do after like working as a facilitator and like going through these slides, but as a high schooler, I did not know those existed. That's so cool. Awesome. Okay. Thank you all so much for sharing. Feel free to still put in your answer as we go on. Any other questions though, before we move on? Good. Also, just feel free to throw them in the chat whenever. Okay. We'll move on. Yes, thanks, Sarah. Probably worded way better than what I tried to do. Okay. So applying for scholarships. This. Okay. So what we have here is a general timeline that you can follow if you would want to start right now in your journey in applying for scholarships. And if you notice on this timeline, we have the goal of submitting applications for your scholarships sometime in September and April. Yes, September, April, you would submit your applications. And the purpose of that, and as well as the purpose of starting right now, if you can, to apply for scholarships or begin your search, is because we don't want you to get overwhelmed with both college application deadlines and scholarship application deadlines. You don't want to like get overwhelmed and stressed out over that. So starting now would be a really big, great step into kind of saving yourself the stress later. So, for example, sometime this week, I might look through Google or one of our search engines that I will talk about later, to look for different types of scholarships that I might be eligible to apply to and or interested in. And then in August, I'll have this list of scholarships that I had started building. And I would go through the different deadlines of these scholarships and prioritize them, maybe in like a Google Sheet or something that you wanted to use, to prioritize the different deadlines and to know which deadlines are coming up. And sometime in August as well, I might also want to start getting all my documents and looking at the different requirements of each scholarships together to be ready to eventually submit my application in September/April. Now that we have went over scholarships, how can you increase your chances of actually winning one? And a good way to start is to start by thinking about your different qualities and the different characteristics of yourself that you think makes you stand out. For example, this student here is an adopted Native American transgender girl, et cetera, et cetera. And this student would then be able to go through these different qualities, such as being adopted and such as being Native American, and go through different scholarships to see which ones she would be eligible for. Because let's say there's a scholarship that is specifically for adopted students, she would then be able to apply to that scholarship. And then there's another separate scholarship, maybe, that is for specifically Native American students that she would also be then eligible to apply for and look into. And that, of course, kind of goes hand in hand with having great academics, having good grades, test scores. Those will also help you in the scholarship search, as well as having a talent or a specific interest in something like you're one of your extracurriculars. So for some students that might be being athletic, that might be them being artistic. I mentioned this in my last workshop. I was in band for like 7 years of my life. So when it came time to look for scholarships, I think one of the local scholarships that I applied for had to do with music, like rising musicians or something like that. So looking through your different interests and extracurriculars as well could also help you along this way. Okay, on that note, this next activity will have you starting to think about your different qualities um, that make you unique, that might be able to help you look for different scholarships. So try to make a list of about 5 to 10 things that make you unique and maybe is part of your identity. So for a lot of students, that might be your interests, any talents that you might have, life experiences, again, extracurriculars. For some students, this might be their culture or racial identity, where they're from, or the languages that they speak. Of course, if you have other things that you feel like are beyond this list, feel free to list that as well. It's just like a little brainstorming activity. So let's take a few minutes for that. And you can feel free to share it in the chat as well if you would like to. Okay, cool. Awesome. And feel free again to throw in a question in the chat if you have it, if you have one as I'm presenting. Okay, in this next slide, we have linked a scholarship guide that is, again, very information dense and you might find very helpful in your scholarship search. And I will go into this document to briefly highlight some of the different parts of it and explain it. Okay, so if you see here, there's a lot of information that I definitely recommend you going through at your own time. It's very helpful in my opinion. And again, information dense. What I will go through are the different charts that we have here. The first chart is what I was trying to reference before. These are different types and links to scholarship kind of like search engines. So you can utilize these links and websites to search for different types of scholarships that are tailored to you and might be tailored to like your different qualities. And here we have the different types of scholarships by local scholarships, state scholarships, and national scholarships. I would say the main difference that I wanted to point out about these different kinds of scholarships is that local scholarships are typically for smaller, they have smaller applicant pools. Um, Local scholarships typically have they have smaller applicant pools. They're open to less people because they're local versus national scholarships you have like thousands of students applying to them. So that might translate then to like local scholarships are people find that they're easier to get than national scholarships because again, you're competing against less people for them. But at the same time, local scholarships typically have less funding than national scholarships. When I applied to local scholarships as a high school student, I think the average was about like $1,000, $500 per scholarship, versus a lot of the national scholarships that I looked at range from like 15,000, 20,000 to I think it always like hovered around 20,000. So there's also that like amount difference between these different types of scholarships. My word of advice for applying to these different scholarships, I would advise that you apply to both local and national scholarships because, as I just mentioned before, there's pros and cons to each one. While local scholarships might be slightly easier to get, national scholarships will, if you get one, you'll be like $20,000 in. So there's definitely pros and cons to both. And I think it's worth it to look at both and try to apply to all of these different kinds if you can. So those are the different types. And here is a chart for scholarships for historically underrepresented students. So here we have, let's say, for example, scholarships for American, Asian American, and Pacific Islander students. We have scholarships for LGBTQ students. There are here. There are specific scholarships for undocumented students. So if any of these are applicable to you, applicable, oh my gosh, I've been saying it wrong, huh? Applicable to you, then feel free to look through all of these links and kind of like explore these different types that are applicable to you. Awesome. And if you have any questions about this guide as well, feel free to drop it into the chat. But anyways, so that is the guide. Cool. And Sarah also linked it into the chat, but you'll have access to these slides as well. So the next two slides are going to be two of the national scholarships that we had listed in the guide. The first one being the College Board Big Future Scholarship. And the nice thing about this one that I really like about is that in order to qualify for the scholarship, you have to do things such as starting your college list, starting your scholarship list, and completing the FAFSA. These are already things that you should be doing regardless of applying to this scholarship or not. So it's kind of like knocking out two birds with one stone. Just by doing it through College Board, you'll not only be being productive in your college search and your application process, but you'll also qualify for this scholarship. And the next scholarship is that we wanted to highlight is the Dell Scholarship. And if you recall from my little get to know me slide, I am a Dell Scholar myself. And just by being a Let's Get Ready student, you should qualify and be eligible for this scholarship, which is really nice. This scholarship includes a $20,000 scholarship that is divided amongst your 4 years. So the maximum amount when I was looking, it was divided by four, $5,000 a year that they're able to give you. Obviously, look at the website themselves if they updated it. But a lot of scholarships do end up working that way in that they'll say that like, oh, we're gonna give you $10,000. Usually that is divided amongst the 4 years and you can request them by year. This scholarship also includes a laptop with a 4-year warranty, textbook credits. You also get academic, financial, and counseling support services. I think they have like telehealth that you would be able to access as well through them. And these are also some of the eligibility things for that. Again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions because I myself went through the application process and can speak about my experiences. So always feel free to drop by my office hours, email me with any questions at all. Cool. Okay. So here are some of the things that you may need to apply for scholarships. Most scholarships will ask you for things like a resume, letters of recommendations from teachers, And as I had mentioned before, a lot of scholarships will also have you do things like writing an essay. In regards to a resume, I remember when I was in high school, just thinking about having to write a resume was so intimidating and scary. But as someone who made it out the other end, and I can report back to you that it really is not that bad. And there are plenty of resources, guides, programs online that are able to help you throughout the process. One of them is listed, linked here as a resume writing guide. Letters of recommendation, you'll ask your teachers for them. And the thing that I'll say about that is do not be afraid to ask the same teachers to help you submit a letter of recommendation, because typically what they can do is just slightly tweak what they've already written for you and just submit it for another scholarship application or another application for you. So don't feel too intimidated about asking the same teacher for a letter. Um, and this last bullet point here just kind of like emphasizes that it's honestly better to underestimate your chances of getting a scholarship rather than overestimating it. Obviously, if you are able to, it is best if you can apply to as many scholarships as you can. I applied myself to like, I want to say around 10 scholarships and 10, 15 scholarships maybe, and I got two. And that was already, I won two scholarships out of like the 10 or 15. That was already considered extremely lucky on my end. So I definitely would recommend, if you're able to, applying to a mix of different types of scholarships, local, state, national, all of that good stuff. And of course, when we're working to a goal that is very broad and big, such as applying to scholarships, it is very smart to break up your goal into smaller goals that you can set for maybe the end of this week, the end of this month, etc. And what we have here, you might have heard of it before, like this acronym SMART. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So having your goals have all of these factors and like qualities will help you work towards them. So an example would be, instead of just saying, I'm going to apply to scholarships, a better goal, a smarter goal might be by the end of this week, I will have looked for at least two scholarships that I would want to apply to. Something like that. So I'm going to give you all about 2 minutes to kind of think about what you might want to do by the end of this week. What's one step that you would like to take towards your scholarship application journey by the end of this week? And try to, again, have it be a SMART goal. Give you about 2 minutes. Feel free to share it if you would like to, but you totally do not need to. We are so back. Okay, awesome. By the way, guys, I love this artist. I just went during my break onto Spotify to like look them up, and I have like three of their songs liked. I didn't even realize that, but I recommend listening to them. It's such a chill vibe. Cool. I like discovered them unintentionally through Spotify. It was one of their recommended songs. So I would recommend. Okay, cool. Anyways, continuing on, I hope everyone is back and had a nice break. Our next section is how you can approach talking about finances with your family. And this conversation can be very necessary or is very necessary, especially as you're in the stage of applying for different things, such as applying for scholarships and applying for college in general. And that is because for many scholarships and financial aid applications in general, they will ask you for, as part of their eligibility, maybe that um, your family earns under a certain amount. Certain scholarships will have like a cutoff for that. So understanding like a good estimation of how much your family earns will be very helpful in searching for scholarships. Not only that, but also in your searching for colleges will be very important because you want to know which colleges you would actually be able to comfortably afford. There are also resources online, such as the net price calculators that you can use if you know how much your family earns. Um, the way that net price calculators work is they are typically offered by the school themselves that you can access. So if I were applying for Barnard College, I would type into Google Barnard College net price calculator. And then through those calculators, you put in an estimation of how much your family earns, and they will output approximately how much you can expect to have to pay to attend XYZ school. I did this a lot when I was applying for colleges myself. So for all of these reasons, it's very important, convenient, necessary for you to know how much, your finances of your family. And if approaching the conversation about finances with your parents' guardians is intimidating, being able to kind of relay the importance of knowing can also help with that conversation as a whole. So, that all being said, everyone has a different like experience with talking about finances with their family, with their parents, guardians. So, I would like to know, put an emoji into the chat. How do you feel about this? Is it intimidating? Is it, normalized in your family? How are we feeling? There are many students who are like, I've never spoken about finances with my parents. Like, some parents are just not really open to doing that. Um, on default, I have plenty of friends who are like that. Personally, I grew up talking about finances with my parents. They were very open about it and kind of transparent with our um, our financial background and, like situation. So it is different for everyone. I like the GIF that you put in, Sarah. I love GIFs. I have friends who say GIF instead of GIF. I'm a GIF type of gal. How are we feeling? You can also just put like a thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah, I think a lot of I have plenty of friends who like parents just don't really talk about finances, so that's totally understandable. But it's okay. We will work through this together and we'll talk about like the different ways that you can approach it. You can always also, if you want, like, if you feel like you want more personalized help, you can reach out to your coaches as well throughout this process. Yeah. Oh, I so resonate with that, honestly, Connie. Yeah. I especially resonate with that last part of like, I do feel that they're less concerned than me when it comes to the price of college. I think it's maybe because I'm a first gen low income student, I felt that pressure of like, I don't want to take out a single dime for college. Like, that was such a scary thought to me. And throughout the entire process, my parents were like, it's chill. Just do what you need to do. And I was like, no, I can't do that. So I resonate with that 100%. But yeah, thank you guys for sharing. And it's so normal to have different feelings about this. Everyone's family situation is so different. There's no like normal answer at all. But hopefully, with the rest of the slides, we can start to brainstorm ideas of, let's say, like how to bring it up, how you can approach the conversation, how to go about it, etc. Because I understand it can still be kind of intimidating. So, some ways to open up a conversation with your family, your parents, guardians about this. Um, we kind of already briefly touched on this, kind of relaying that there is indeed an importance in having the conversation and in you fully kind of understanding the finances of the family, the importance of that, just so they don't feel like, oh, you're just butting into our situation, or this isn't necessary. It very much is necessary. It's important. So kind of relaying that to them, letting it be known can help you open up a conversation. Also, having a conversation ahead of time, to kind of be like, oh, mom, dad, or whoever you're talking to, are you free next Friday to kind of just sit down and iron this through and have this conversation instead of putting them on the spot without a warning, or that, I don't want to say warning, like a heads up. A heads up could be helpful, and they can mentally prepare as well to like have this conversation instead of feeling like they're being put on the spot. Cool. Okay. And one of the reasons why it's important to know the, oopsies. It's important to know your family's financial situation is also FAFSA. So, as you may recall, FAFSA is one of the financial aid forms and applications that you will have to fill out, not only during your senior year in preparation for your freshman year of college, but also the summers after that throughout your college years. You'll have to reapply every year. And FAFSA can be a big hot topic. It can be a bit confusing. For some students, it can be confusing as to figuring out who needs to fill out the FAFSA um, for them. So, especially if, you don't know which parent to ask or which guardian to ask, that could be confusing. And although I'm no expert in this topic myself, you can very easily access information about your specific situation through FAFSA and through their website. So they have many resources on this for you to help you figure out which parent, guardian to ask for them to fill out your FAFSA for you. Um, and while we're on the topic of FAFSA, we'll also dive into how to get ready to complete FAFSA right now, or how to prepare for it right now. And a few things to know about FAFSA, kind of throwing it around right now, but FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It is a form of grant. So if you recall from one of our earlier slides, a grant is free money. You don't have to return money that you get from FAFSA or from grants, which is lovely. Um, and it provides money for you to go to college. It can also be used by schools for them to determine how much aid they will give you from the school themselves, because FAFSA is from the government. So many schools will give you a separate financial aid offer, separate package of money that they are giving you as a school. And oftentimes they will use the information that you put into FAFSA to evaluate how much money they will give you, or if you are eligible for these different grants and money. And also they might use it for determining how much or if you're eligible for the low interest loans that they might offer as a school. Um, yes, you have to apply for it every year. And if you are not a US citizen, um, this you may or may not be eligible for FAFSA. It's more scenario based. So check out the link on this slide. And also, yes, Sarah put it into the chat if applicable to you. Feel free to look through that as well. Okay. Something about the FAFSA as well is that it is first come, first serve. So money is assigned on a rolling basis. That is why it is best if you are able to apply for FAFSA right when it opens on October 1st. FAFSA does typically open on October 1st, but it can also depend on the state that you're in, and the different deadlines, the different colleges and states that are for your specific situation, that might alter the FAFSA deadline. But the FAFSA opens October 1st, and you should, if you are able to, apply for it either on October 1st or like the first week of FAFSA opening, because you want to maximize the amount of money that you are able to get out of FAFSA. That is why I get that little phone call from my sister every early October. She's like, I just looked at the calendar. FAFSA open. Did you apply for it? That's why. It's because it's on a rolling basis. So, um, preparing for it as well will be very helpful ahead of time. So you need to get some of your documents together, such as IDs and tax returns. Kind of being prepared for the opening of FAFSA will be helpful. So different steps to actually get ready for applying for the FAFSA that you can do right now. You will have to create an FSA ID, and these are the different things that you will need in order to create one. You will also have your parent/guardian create an FSA ID as well. This is all through FAFSA. And you will also need to create a FAFSA account. So these are all different things that you will need to set up ahead of time. If you are able to, it's best if you set it up ahead of time. And what I recommend doing with all of your FSA IDs as well as your login info for your FAFSA, have all of this organized and written down somewhere safe and that you can refer back to, because again, you have to apply for the FAFSA every year. And the most stressful thing is when you create all of this, your FSA IDs and your login info, and you forget your password or you forget your ID number. Um, it's really stressful. And again, because it's on like a rolling basis, you want to be able to apply for it as soon as possible. Just having all this information somewhere safe, maybe in your notes app, on a Google document, just somewhere safe, so you can easily refer back to it and access it and not have to have a mental breakdown over it. And if it sounds like I've experienced it myself, it's because I have, and it was really stressful. So take it from me, please have that safe somewhere. You can also have, there are lists online that tell you what documents you can expect to need when you are applying for FAFSA. This is usually tax returns, IDs, such as such. And you can access these lists on Google, online ahead of time before the FAFSA. So you can just gather it, have it aside, and when FAFSA opens, you can apply and use those. The last thing listed here is to kind of schedule your parents or guardians ahead of time to complete the FAFSA together. It will take like about an hour or so, on average, to kind of just sit down somewhere with your parents and be able to get it done in one go when they're there. That will likely make the situation less stressful when they are sitting there and are able to answer some of the questions that you might not have the answer to. And again, this hour or so will save you like thousands of dollars. So it's definitely worth it to plan ahead and be prepared to apply for FAFSA. That was a lot. So it can be complicated. It can feel complicated for FAFSA to apply for FAFSA, but it's okay because you have a lot of resources. Mm, Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Um, you have many resources. Let's get ready. You have guides online that are able to help. And I know that many high schools as well have, let's say, like after school programs, or if you ask your counselors, your school might offer a program as well that is willing to help students with FAFSA and completing FAFSA because everyone around this time, it's like confusing, it can be complicated. Been there, done that type of situation. So there are plenty of help online that you can access. Again, listed here, you can ask your guidance counselors, people who have already been through FAFSA, applied to FAFSA. You can ask your peers, your Let's Get Ready coaches, etc. Point is, you have a lot of help and don't be too scared about applying to FAFSA. Heads up though, and I feel like this is each year. Um, the wording of FAFSA can be a bit confusing. I remember when I applied, there were like one or two questions that I had more than half my friends mess up when they were completing the FAFSA, simply because it was worded in a weird way that confused a lot of students. So definitely be on the lookout for like specific wordings and try to like read things through once or twice. There are also guides online that you can access right now, such as the one from the college essay guy that point out the questions that are more complicatedly worded and confusing that you can look at and kind of get like a little heads up on before you actually apply. Also, check your emails. I know that in high school, you don't really necessarily need to check emails that often, or at least most high school students don't have that need yet. But it will be important to check your emails, um, especially after completing your FAFSA application, because some people will be selected for what's called a FAFSA verification. It's not necessarily that you're in trouble. A lot of the times it is just FAFSA reaching out and asking for, let's say, additional documents for your application. But it's best if you reply in a timely manner and that you see the notification so you can update your FAFSA for that. Also, I know we're talking a lot about the FAFSA right now, but it is not the only financial aid form that you might need to fill out. It depends on the school, but some schools will also require you to fill out a CSS profile, which is a different application than FAFSA. It's going to ask many similar questions, such as like, oh, you'll need your parents' tax return, your parents' guardians' tax return forms. Um, it might ask you about like your parents' assets, things like that. So it's kind of similar questions, but it's a different application. And it will depend on the schools that you are looking to apply to, um, on which one you have to fill out, whether you need to fill out FAFSA, CSS, or both. Okay, we spoke a lot about financial aid, but how do you go about reviewing financial aid offers and what are those? Financial aid award letters are given to students after they are accepted, admitted into, or no, not admitted, accepted into a school. It will usually be part of your acceptance package letter. And the school will, yeah, have it be part of your package when they accept you. It is important that you look at the financial aid award letters because that will tell you how much the school is willing to give you to go to their school. And it will also tell you how much you can expect to pay when if you go to this school. The thing about financial aid letters, however, is that they can be kind of confusing and they can that can be because of like the wording. I feel like some of the wordings that are used throughout this process of applying to financial aid is it was like my first time coming across these different things as a freshly like 17, 18-year-old. So that in itself can be very confusing, but also a lot of the times financial aid letters are confusing. They like word it in a weird way, just in like by default. So it's really important that you actually sit down and try to understand like each little thing about it because it's important. It tells you how much you need to pay for college. An example I like to give for this is when I was reviewing my financial aid offers from my different schools, I noticed that a lot of the times they would include my work study fund as part of the financial aid award letter. And if you can recall, a work study fund or the work study aspect of your financial aid letter, it's a job basically that you have to work and then you get a paycheck, but it's not guaranteed. As in, if you don't get a job, then you won't be getting paid that amount. So let's say they listed that for work study fund, they listed like $2,000 a year. That sounds nice. It sounds like they're going to give you $2,000 just like guaranteed. But if something happens and you don't end up taking on a part-time job and getting your work study fund, then you don't get the $2,000. So little things like those can be confusing about the financial aid award letter. And that was something that was confusing to me because I was like, why are you listing it as like a grant or like a scholarship when you're not really going to give it to me unless I work the job first. Just weird things, anyways. So it's long story short, important that you sit down and if you are able to, if you have questions, you can talk to like, let's say an older sibling, a counselor at school, things like that. Just make sure you fully understand your financial aid offer. And if you have questions, Let's Get Ready is also here to help with that. But there are also tip sheets and videos online on how to review the financial aid award letter. Again, it's like a lot of the times for students, it's your first time coming across these different terms and phrases and just like adulting things. So it's not embarrassing. It's not normal to be confused by a lot of these things. And that's why there are so many resources online and just in general for you to access. Um, you can also have your Let's Get Ready coach that will help you again throughout this process. And of course, this last point here, do not commit to a school before you fully understand what they are actually offering you. A lot of the times in these letters, they might make it seem like they're giving you more money than they actually are in reference Exhibit A to my other story that I just said about the work study fund. So definitely understand it. That will be very, very important. And Let's Get Ready is here throughout the way to help you with everything. So do not be too scared. This is all just kind of like, it's better to be warned and like, not be warned, but know ahead of time and keep it in the back of your head right now. So that when it does come time to do all of this, you'll be armed and ready. Okay, awesome. So that was this workshop. We covered a lot. So does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want me to go over anything? Was anything worded weirdly that you don't understand? Feel free to throw it in the chat or to unmute any questions at all. Or if not, a thumbs up. I'm out of water. Any questions, Connie? Good. Awesome. Okay. Again, you have the link to my office hours if anything comes up afterwards and you want to ask me specifically, especially if you want to apply to the Dell Scholarship and need help with that. I'm always open. So drop by my office hour, come hang out. Okay, awesome. So in closing, we talked a lot today about FAFSA, about CSS. Not really about CSS, but financial aid offers. I'm blanking out. We talked a lot about everything today. So feel free again to drop by my office hours if you have any questions. And honestly, long story short, if anything comes up along the way, you'll always have your Let's Get Ready coach that you can rely on and reach out for help. Also, please do share your feedback. It is very helpful to us. We use them every year to kind of tweak these workshops and figure out what our students need from Let's Get Ready. So you can scan this QR code and give us some feedback. But other than that, if there are no questions, I will stick around for a few more minutes. But other than that, thank you all so much for coming today and being so, what's the word? Engaging with me and for sticking around. Really like having you here. So if there are no questions, feel free to dip and I will see you guys maybe next time or at my office hours. Ciao.